Welcome to Cutting Through with me, Natasha Plowman. Today, I have Aleksandra Osipova, who's the founder of Apricity Lab, and we're continuing our conversation around how do we cut through with humanity in the age of AI. And today, what I'm really looking forward to getting to the conversation with Aleksandra is how do we improve operations that expand rather than erase human capability? Now, this has unfortunately been the conversation we keep on hearing that AI is taking people's jobs, that AI is changing industries, and it is happening to those things. But what do we really ring fence and focus around for humanity, which is the most important part of all of this as well? So I'm looking forward to getting stuck into this conversation. So welcome, Aleksandra, to Cutting Through.
Hi, hello. Happy to be here.
Thank you very much. So let's just kick off with a little bit. Give me a little bit of who you are, a bit of your background and what makes you you.
Amazing question. I'm Aleksandra. I am founder of Apricity Lab. Before that, my main background is applied mathematics, and I did complex system modeling, data science, AI product management. Right now, what interests me and my full focus is on the future where we don't push people out of the economy, but instead redesign work so human are long-term capable to do what we're love doing, working for purpose.
Yeah, brilliant. And this is great because so much of Cutting Through is about, how does communications solve business problems? And I'm really interested in hearing how, from your background in particular, like with applied mathematics and product, where do you feel like communications needs to upweight itself to be able to have these conversations about AI and the transformation that we're on at the moment?
Right. So we have a lot of noise and we have a lot of sensations around AI. Just recently, I read that I believe it was CTO of Microsoft who predicted that in 18 months we will have all white collar jobs automated, and that's the main trend in communication, that we are going to automate this function and this function. And I remember before we mainly were focused on solving unsolvable, solving great problems, bringing more intelligence into the world. So the communication around AI shifted. The communication within communities and between people also shifted. We're slightly more automated. We don't reach out with our presence. We reach out with texts that have been pre-written with ChatGPT and others. Interesting time, really.
It really is an interesting time, and I think it seems to be this conversation, and I think this is why we came up with this theme for this series is, how do you cut through with humanity in the age of AI? Because, it's almost like like everything in life, it's becoming so polarized and becoming so, you're either this camp or that camp. And actually the reality is everyone is in somewhere in that messy middle that we don't define. When I say how to cut through with humanity in the age of AI, what does that mean to you?
On a personal level is to be as present as possible. And I'm all for technology if you can use anything that help you to bring more of you, more of authentic you to the world. That's amazing. Use it, apply it. And on the professional level, I believe in upskilling rather than cutting all the headcount. And we hear a lot about layoffs, and everyone try to close the budget and plan long term. But we do need to care about people who are around, because we are, as a society, we work when everyone has something to do.
I mean, and you talk, and again, that's that whole dichotomy of different viewpoints. So we talk around, because I suppose the language that people talk around AI is one part is creativity and curiosity and they be able to have access to information. And the other part, which unfortunately seems to be getting the focus at the moment, is this focus around efficiency. And when people hear efficiencies, they hear job cuts, they hear money saving, they hear, automation is that I am no longer required. And I suppose that reflects a lot from the Industrial Revolution when we talk about automation there, but now it's automation of knowledge. So how do you think we can actually start being really clear on what does it mean to be human in this transition and this transformation? And where do you see some great examples of like businesses who have been able to I suppose navigate this?
I have an amazing example, and I'm working with use cases every day, and this is the best so far. So IKEA, they started introducing AI to customer support in 2021, so 5 years ago, and they led with analytics. So they understood that AI can answer around 47% of the requests, customer requests in the call center. And they also did analysis what AI cannot handle and what people really want to have. So they discovered that with this 47% answered, they have about 90,000 people who will need to do another job, or be somehow transferred. And they decided to upskill. It is 8,500 people. They decided to upskill. They figure out that customers want to have some guidance around design, and answering what would look better in the living room, this sofa or like this design. If we compare numbers, they saved around 13 millions on automation for the repetitive tasks that AI chatbot was able to solve, and they earn around additional 13 billion euros at the end of the year. I think it was 2023, but they uncover a lot of additional value for business, and numbers speak for itself. They have savings and they have new value generated.
Yeah.
And this is the approach that I see the most productive for all of us, for small businesses, medium businesses, and huge corporations.
Yeah. Because chatbots, they are sometimes the most frustrating thing that you can ever interact with in your entire life. And, the amounts of times that you're kind of trying to talk to talk through a chatbot and you're just like, speak to a human. I need to speak to a human. I had an example the other day where I was trying to change the numbers of an existing restaurant booking from 12 people to 10 people. And I would go through that and just saying, oh, because I want to be the good citizen and tell people that we're reducing our number size rather than just rock up with a smaller number. And I went through it so many times of just saying, I reduce my booking from 12 to 10. We have no available bookings at that time. And it kind of went going back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth to the point I was just like, I need to speak to a human. And then and I know chatbots are absolutely developing at a rate of knots and everything. But, how can businesses just get so much better at really verifying and confirming the use cases? So it was really interesting that IKEA, they kind of defined a particular thing that they wanted to solve. They were really clear on the human interaction on that solve. And then they were able to then they saw the benefits of that. But then we're seeing so many other businesses are just installing generic chatbots thinking it will save them money. And all it does is cause frustration with the end user. Now, I feel better having shared that. So what do you think they need to be doing better to make sure that we are actually using this technology effectively for humans?
Thanks for sharing, first of all. What we like, what I understand, everyone is experimenting, and there many companies lack the data or lack the focus on the customer. They might not understand what they want to automate, or they might not understand what AI is capable of. So some people really want to have chatbots. Other people understand that they need automation. So if there are clear use cases, you build automation around it, and there's less frustration. But I agree with you when you speak with a bot or like with a system that usually have a human profile picture, but it's not a human. It's really frustrating.
Yeah, no, it is frustration. And I think this is also part of if people don't feel an added benefit, if people don't feel that things are frictionless, then it becomes more of the chatter about a transition to AI that kind of means you've got a higher barrier, I suppose, to reach. And and it just feels like that a lot of businesses are, again, ticking a box saying, okay, oh, we're AI enabled, but they haven't done the hard foundational work to really understand how people are going to use it effectively. And I suppose to your point, upskilling people internally, but also educating and upskilling their customers. So their customers feel part of that solution. And do you see any other, and I suppose it's back to your IKEA example, how did they, engage their customers well enough to make sure that they got the value that they got? Is that something that you think they did intentionally?
They're very intentional. I believe that like the core of their success is that they didn't ask the question how we can reduce headcount. They ask a question of how we can generate better value for our customers. So they thought about their employees and also they thought about the customers. So it's a focus, internal focus and intention that shape the strategy of what you're going to have in your operation next couple of years.
And I suppose that's, I mean, again, that's the crux of it. If you start with an intention of making life easier for people, or if you
Mm.
start an intent with an intention of we're going to solve a problem, then you're more likely to come up with a solution. But if you start with an intention of how much money can we save, then I suppose that's always asking the wrong question, isn't it? But it seems to be that's what people are asking. It's just, and I wonder how do we shift the conversation that we're having about AI to be more intentional around where we can show benefit or where we can solve problems or where we can make life easier and away from just simply monetary metrics, which may come and then, but it shouldn't necessarily be the very first thing people consider, do you think?
Absolutely, and it's normal. I think what the most helpful lens here is to we want efficiency this year, but what will happen in the next 2 to 5 years if we don't know what will be the stage of AI. We don't know if we will be able to hire our best people back. Maybe they will do something differently or elsewhere. So if we think about long game, then we start considering what is my resourcefulness right now and how can I bring it up. But if we think about 1 month, 1 year, then we want to then we want to get it all as fast as possible to produce the products that might be not very useful in the long term, but we just want to cover this niche, take all the gold, and run away. So it's thinking about the long game, and
Yeah.
in the long run, statistics show that companies usually win when they focus on the generating new value, maybe higher level value, and focusing on the customers.
Yeah. It sounds so logical, doesn't it? So why doesn't
Mm.
it happen? I mean, again, your experience, I suppose, and particularly the different areas. So why do you think that we know that when businesses focus on the long term, when we know when businesses are really intentional about transformation and make it not just siloed little activities of proof points, but actually look at where do we want our business to go in the future and what are we setting out? But it just always seems to be the same conversation of, little headlines of 8,000 people gone here because we've replaced with this automation, but they don't have a real intention of what the strategy is in the future. And I love what you said around, we have to start thinking long term in this
Mm.
approach. So what do you think? I mean, like, just what do you think? What do you think is holding people back? What do you think is, what is it? What do you think businesses are afraid of about being really clear about where they might go in the future? Is it because they don't know or they just can't have those conversations internally at the moment?
Most of the businesses want to either get more funding and they need to show certain metrics, or they have a board approval and they also care about revenue to this day.
Mm.
And I think that's the main issue. We focus on one specific metric and we forget that everyone else around focus on the revenue as well, which means there will be there will be no customers if people don't have money to buy from you.
I know.
Um,
It's nuts, isn't it? It's just kind of, and this is the whole short-termist. And I think, and there's some kind of conversation around, and I've heard this kind of discussed before, and I think I've mentioned it before on cutting through, is that, when we look at the Industrial Revolution and we look at automation from a manufacturing perspective, and that was also the conversations at that point were around job loss and always around job losses. And really that seems to be what has fueled the growth of knowledge work. And knowledge work fundamentally is what is being disrupted now. So there is kind of, will there be other industries or other expertise or other skill sets that we just can't imagine now that are going to come out of this transformation? So, do you have a crystal ball and can kind of get an idea of what types of industries or sectors that are really, and what I'd like to know is, that are really human, and what does that look like in the future? So, I'm giving you complete license, crystal ball. What do you think might actually emerge from this transformation?
yeah, I finally get my crystal ball
Yes,
license, so
exactly. This is
I'm
your
going to
crystal
add
ball.
it. Yeah, I think there at the beginning of AI boom, we had this conversation that there are several scenarios potentially. And what I understand right now is that those scenarios are how we as a society are going to implement AI. So what we're going to with all the media shouting about how many people were laid off in and it's so unfortunate, so much stress for people. And we we know that if we automate a writing, for example, then we need someone who will have some ideas. If we automate the ideas, we need someone who will say, this is the chain of the actions that you need to do in order to do this operation. Then we have agent that maybe understand how to do the job or like has some skills developed. Then we have a higher layer automated, and the trend is happening like we will automate this function, then this function, then this function, and all the people who remain in business are going to provide us data to train the next layer. And in this approach, with this approach, there nothing good what can happen. So and I'm frustrated and scared about that scenario. It seems that that's where we're heading.
But you have your
It,
crystal ball now. So
yeah,
that's where we might be
hope
heading. So where
I
do we,
hope there's another scenario.
okay, what is our other scenario that we could,
Yeah.
yeah, because if we don't have those conversations about what a potential other scenario is, then we're just going to keep on going down the same path. So I'm really excited by cutting through, just kind of like, thinking outside the box. What could be the alternative?
The alternative is when we personalize more things. So there's so many great scenarios where in medicine we have triage and people who urgently need help, they have this artificial conversation or they can pass the test. We can prioritize them, and that people who need urgent support will get it sooner. And this is amazing scenario. In education, we can focus on personalization of learning and think, okay, with this mindset or like with this mental condition or with this personality, you're going to learn more and better with Albert Einstein as a teacher, and maybe we will build a personality for you, or like something else. So personalization in education can bring a lot as well. So and we can upskill people. We can think about where we generate more value. How do we reduce risks of like cybersecurity risks? So there's so much positive that can come out of AI, but it's us as a society who prioritize what we're going to do next. That will that that, that will give us the final answer which scenario we are moving toward.
It has to be a transformation. It has to be with a vision of the future. It has to be more than a cost-cutting tool. It has to be more than just, something tactical. It has to be like, what do we reimagine our future to look like? And I suppose in this last couple of days, we've had so many examples of the rejection of AI. You've had people talk at, university commencement speeches and boo people talking about a future of AI. And it seems we're just getting it's again, we're back to that whole thing of this tussle of an either or. And what you're describing here is we need to be really clear on the messy middle. We need to be clear around the choices that we make and how intentional we are with human potential in mind and the human ability to connect. And I
Mm.
suppose that begs the question again. Let's go back to your kind of foundational experience around kind of product and mathematics and that real structure. So with that basis, do you think that kind of work will be something that requires more human intervention, or do you think it's something that will still lean into kind of a progression of, AI tools that may not forget the human involvement in it? And what does that look like for you, particularly around product development?
With product, I see a lot of being automated, and product function shifted quite a lot. So now it's expected that you are going to build the MVP or build early prototype. And for me, it's a bit wrong because the core of the product function is your ability to sense the market, to go reach out to customer, listen to them, connect to them, be present, and then bring your discovery back to the company and say, this is our compass, this is where we're going. But if instead we're saying you need to build the shiniest MVP as a product, and this is where we're going. And now you're half developer, half business owner, half alligator. I don't know, whatever, every hats. We're losing on this connection to the customer and intelligence that every business need. So product somehow is transforming, product function is transforming and shaping. There are companies that get it, there are companies that try to automate it. I personally, sometimes I do fractional product work, and more and more I hear, but why do we really need you? We can write a good prompt. And I have no answer to that
Yeah. And I suppose,
because
but
if
then
you don't
again,
get it, you don't
they
get it.
don't, but then again, back to what you said before, it's like, well, who's going to be using this? And is it going to, because, we have all these memes going around of like, people write content with AI to be read by and reduced by an AI tool to then kind of go be expanded on with, and it just has this cycle that goes on. And you forget where the human intervention is. And when you forget where the human use case is, and it just feels like that seems to be the conversation is at the end of the day, because, if you're just getting, and this is the whole, I mean, this is more around comms world at the moment, is we need to write content and PR exists as a function because then it kind of gets registered within LLMs and then able to elevate your reputation, your visibility. But then it's written in a way to just achieve that, not to connect with humans, not to change ideas, not to influence ideas, not to influence behaviors, not to influence. And that's why I feel that it's being lost in some of this conversation. And I think, your lens of the humanity at the center is something that we probably need to consider a lot more of. And then if it's not happening in product, then my God, who is going to be using these products of the future? Is it just, they're just creating for more robots or something, and that's it. It's like, the dystopian future. Is that the crystal ball?
I hope no. The more I see in the news and the use cases, part of me um, part of me is happy because more people are able to create their dream project and just go to the world and raise more some money to build it. But the majority using to build something that is not very useful, or speak that, oh, now we don't need products, now we don't need engineers because we have this magic tool, and it's really sad. So
Yeah.
right now, I think we need to carry two visions at the same time. One that is optimistic and makes us happy, and one which is very pragmatic and show us the risk in a long run. So we need to have it both. So this is my crystal ball. We need we need to have it both.
We need to have the both and need to recognize that both of those things are valid, accurate, and right. And then we have intentional choices around how do we pull those levers and do it differently. I think that's a really useful way of framing this. So the optimistic around human intervention, where the realism of how business is operating and kind of and products are being developed is an important balance between the two. Unfortunately, we're in a society at the moment where fact and opinion are blurred, where people will always try and portray themselves as, the knowledgeable and everything, and it's already factual when in fact it is an opinion. And actually nuance and the messy middle that you're talking about and understanding those two different sides is what's being lost. So just to kind of wrap up our conversation, what do you think is the real focus that we need to kind of land with people?
My non-negotiable focus, and this is the work that I'm doing, is to keep upskilling and the quality of life and quality of intellectual capacity the top priority, and figure out how you can win long game with this approach. And have the business efficiency that you need right now. And for individuals, it's understanding how to use technology for yourself and maybe thinking about if I were to do a fractional job or if I were to provide services, what would it be? How can I support myself in understanding how to do this as a business? And that will give a sense of security that we don't have in employment right now.
So, I mean, ultimately, I mean, we want to have some security, we want to have some sense of change and some sense of the future. And I like how you talk around it's redesigning operations, it's creating new value, but it's also upskilling people, and everyone can have a role to play in that, which is important. And it's not this binary good or bad, it's somewhere in the messy middle at the end of the day. Thank you very much, Alexandra, for coming on Cutting Through. I think this conversation will keep on continuing on. But for now, it was lovely to have you on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your questions and your focus on humanity. I will be delighted to chat with you in a year and see if we are closer to the positive scenario.
Time will tell which crystal ball do we have. Thanks, Alex. Bye.
Sure.